Welcome to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
Sharan, I see you have decided to bring your exercise regimen into our podcast by saying less is more. I must tell you, they say less is more about diet and not about the exercise.
Each his own, right? To
Hmm.
each his own. We make what we do of the sayings we hear.
Yes, I agree. But why are we discussing that here in this podcast?
So the whole point of less is more comes to the brands that we work on. A lot of times entrepreneurs reach out saying, I'm doing this business, how do I grow it? And most often what I see, shockingly, I think we discussed this in one of the earlier episodes also, about them having more portfolio than business. As in they have so many products, of which I saw an entrepreneur who's got like some 25 SKUs and 90% of his business comes from 2 SKUs. So because today you can pretty much manufacture anything and that seems controllable, people end up manufacturing or getting themselves into a lot of categories. And it's not just with entrepreneurs. I even see it to the larger businesses where just because they can get into a category, they've gotten into a category without too much thought.
Okay. Fair. I can think of 2 legible reasons, one legible and one plausible. One usually is that when you're starting off, you're not sure which product will work and which wouldn't. So sometimes for the sake of experimentation, to understand your PMF, etc., too often people might get into extensions, flavors,
Right.
SKUs, or even brands, right? So that's one, for the sake of experimentation. The second, possibly, when everybody wants to go to any kind of channel, uh, you know, and specifically for traditional distribution, they want to make sure that all their cost of distribution or warehousing cost gets apportioned over a larger volume, and hence the need to increase the range, sell more through the same pipeline. That could be the other reason why people do this.
In fact, the latter is actually the biggest reason. I'm all for experiments, and at the experiment stage, you are not investing too much into it. So it's perfectly fine testing different products, different lines. I'm all for it. It is when your business is ongoing and you keep expanding your portfolio, saying that will give you the basket size to go to the distributor. Now, what is the point of the basket size if it doesn't sell? You're better off selling your 2 or 3 SKUs to meet the distributor's volume. Give them a larger territory to manage. But if you can justify this 3, even if you have 35 SKUs, only these 3 will contribute anyway. Simplify operations.
Okay.
Take that. And in fact, for businesses and for startups, right? It is, I'm very sure of this, that it is the leader's clarity to know what business they are in and what they must focus on, and let the team just focus on what is more important.
Okay.
That is where leadership comes into play.
No, fair. I completely agree. In fact, at one of the book launches recently that I attended, I was listening to Mr. Anand Kripalu, the ex-MD of Cadbury.
Right.
And he referred to this. In fact, the person introducing him referred to this. And I was then reminded that one of the first things that he did after taking charge of Cadbury, and he had taken charge of Cadbury when Cadbury was growing at whatever, 6, 8, 10% at best. And one of his key things was that we have powerful brands, we must grow faster. And one of the key tenets of his 35% CAGR over the next 6, 8 years was fewer, bigger, faster, better. And he
fewer, faster,
cut down,
bigger, better.
Yeah, fewer, faster, bigger, better. And he cut down. So he went through the list of brands, products, SKUs, and he cut down significantly. So that Cadbury could invest behind the key brands and grow them disproportionately, such that the sales reflect the stature of the brands. And I think he used similar words to what you were just saying. And, being the leader, he led from the front by saying that these are the things that we should not focus on. I remember when I joined, we used to have this milk food drink called Cadbury Delight, right? Which was culled. We used to have Chlorets, which was culled. There was another brand. I remember when I had joined, I had helped liquidate it called Bilkul,
Yes.
right? In those green colored
Yeah.
bottles. That was culled. There was a lollipop by the name of Mr. Pops,
Yeah.
which was first 2 rupees, then it became 3 rupees, etc. That was culled. I recently it was brought back, but
Yeah.
I can recall some 3, 4, 5 brands that I remember I saw when I had joined Cadbury, and by the time I went to sales, these brands almost had started becoming extinct.
Yeah.
So I completely concur.
It's perfect. I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about. Saying it narrow your focus. And when you're operating as a single brand company or a startup, you also need to understand your right to win. And I'm not sure how Mr. Kripalu kind of culled it. I'm sure there was a big process, but I'm sure he took into account that Cadbury was a chocolate company and did his best to keep all the brands that attributed itself to Cadbury as a brand, and therefore leverage their the common strengths. Now, that is the problem, right? When expanding your portfolio too wide, you end up getting into categories where your brand has no real advantage. You end up with products that don't align with your core just because you like it. You end up launching the product, it doesn't align with your core, doesn't sell, the distributor's irritated, you keep taking stock back, and it ultimately not just weakens your brand, but also weakens your overall business.
Understood. Okay, so therefore, are you saying that brands should not expand? Or is there some kind of a method to expanding? I'm sure there is.
There is. So brands should be thoughtful in expanding. So ideally, in the short term, focus on your core products. You shouldn't go too wide, should not have too many. Simplify things, keep things as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And make everything you do fit your brand story and strengths. And if you're expanding, it should be in a way that aligns with the positioning that reinforces your brand's right to win. You don't have to start a new battle altogether. You're already fighting a battle. Everything else should be reinforcing that and not starting something new.
Okay, just expand on this a little bit. You said when you want to expand, it should be in line with the brand positioning.
Correct.
And your right to win.
Right.
Now, suppose I'm a brand, and my core brands are, kind of SKUs or brands that contribute 60-70% of my value. Now I'm doing decently well there. I want to expand now. And I know what the current brands are positioned for. Now, what should I do then?
See, your positioning is pretty much key to everything you do with your brand. It is about understanding where your brand sits in the consumer's mind, what it means to consumers. So if you are a premium brand, you are an affordable brand, you will have to play by the rules you set for yourself. So let's say you're a premium brand and you don't suddenly want to start launching budget products because the distribution for it will be very different. The where it will be selling is very different. And it will also end up, say, diluting a brand if it's not done right. And if I'm going to stick to auto industry because I've been talking about this to a lot of entrepreneurs. So the more I talk about FMCG, it'll become a little too apparent who I'm talking about.
Okay.
So let's take cars, right? Take BMW and Lexus. These are like luxury high-end cars. They launch also entry-level cars, entry-level luxury cars. Now, that they still don't feel like budget options. They still feel like a slice of luxury. That is your positioning. Because they know they are luxury and they're taking a strategic call to expand volumes by making luxury more accessible. They will not go launch a car on mileage at any point. Think this has got great mileage on functionality, never. But the fact that they're making it accessible is different from launching a cheap product. Those are the rules the brand must follow.
Fair. So they're choosing to remain on their familiar terrain or the terrain where consumers are familiar with them.
Hmm.
And hence I'm guessing, Sharan, that because they're maintaining that luxury terrain, now they've launched a entry level, so they must have stripped down something. But they must have arrived at a certain set of features that they will never strip down, and these are essentials to carry. That's the definition, their definition of luxury.
Right. Look at it, right? Just having the badge on the car is good enough.
Yeah.
When your brand is positioned for something, let's say like luxury, and you're wanting to make it accessible, you got to be very careful in that balance. Like you said, some features will remain consistent, some you will compromise on to make sure it's accessible. So Mercedes launched a compact sedan. It was Mercedes C-Class, which had everything that Mercedes has, but it was cramped inside for space. And they realized their customers were okay to sacrifice that. And therefore, it was still luxury. It became accessible luxury. So when they're only broadening their appeal and not exactly jumping to a completely new proposition.
Understood. So it's an extension of their current positioning. They're going to peripheral consumers, not really creating another circle in the Venn diagram.
Correct.
Okay. Fair. Now, this is a slightly easier to understand. If I am an affordable brand, I'm a life boy. Now, I want to create luxury at my peripheral consumers. What do I do?
It's difficult. It's difficult because it is easier for a premium luxury brand to enter, or rather make luxury accessible, than for a value or a affordable brand to start talking a premium luxury language, because it just doesn't have the badge value. Sticking to auto again, that is why Maruti needs a Nexa. So they are creating almost a separate brand identity, because Maruti had Brezza even before Nexa was there, but it was never really taken very seriously as the premium brand, because it could directly compete with one of the Honda cars. I forget which one, but it never got its due. So launching Nexa, I'm not sure the separation is complete or they've done it the right way, but they've had better traction for their cars under Nexa at a slightly higher price point. Now, premium buyers do not need to confuse themselves for it having a Maruti name. It's just by virtue of being called a Nexa. Same thing goes across multiple cars, right? So Hyundai has a Kia, Toyota has a Lexus. So these happen because an affordable brand, which has got mass manufacturing capabilities, got the engineering design capabilities, but the brand does not have the right to win in a luxury segment. This is like saying I'm doing affordable snacks. Now I'm going to get into the breakfast cereal segment. Brand may not have the right to win there.
No, but I like this example of auto that you gave, and it kind of throws two things at me. Number one, the whole showroom is called Nexa. The brand that they use on the car much more significantly Suzuki, rather than Maruti.
Correct.
So therefore, I think Maruti is one thing and Suzuki is another. Nexa is an interesting one because they have not only changed the product or the branding on the product, but they have changed the entire customer experience by calling it Nexa, and there are tabs there and the whole look and feel of a Maruti showroom. The Nexa showroom doesn't look like a Maruti showroom at all.
And they know they are talking to people who are not buying the first car. And they want to give them that experience. It's more than mere functionality.
Actually, there's another interesting one, Sharan. It just occurred to me that even under Nexa and Suzuki, Maruti possibly knows the limit of because they're again on the periphery of their consumers. So they know the limit of luxury of that periphery. So they will not try to enter the BMW category.
Not yet.
They will still, not yet. Yeah. No, I remember there was this in Mumbai, in Phoenix Mills. I remember seeing a car branded under Suzuki brand name called Kizashi.
Okay.
They had put up this nice Japanese car called Kizashi.
Okay.
It was worth about 20 lakh plus at that point in time, which was one of the most premium car during those days. But I never saw it in the showrooms, never saw it on the road, etc., etc. So I believe that some of these positionings get strengthened over a period of time, and you can only change it or stretch it incrementally.
Absolutely. That's
So
exactly why Lexus.
maybe someday.
Do you know the trivia of how the Lexus name came about?
No. How
Because
did
Toyota was selling pretty well in the US. They wanted to enter the luxury segment, and they realized the brand was not able to play there.
Ah,
So they just decided to call it that. Luxury exports to US became Lexus.
interesting. Oh, very interesting.
So much
Luxury
synonym.
exports to US. Wow. So it's not a name, it's almost an acronym.
That's what it is.
Oh, lovely. Interesting. I didn't know this. Good. So now, tell me. Now, this is a slightly complicated piece. I understand what you're saying. That you're saying that appeal to your peripheral consumers. You know, that is where you must expand, right?
Yeah, if you are expanding, do it
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
You will end. You're better off creating a separate brand than cramming everything under one brand.
Okay. Okay. And why does it seem to me that this methodology seems easier for luxury brands rather than affordable brands? Somehow it seems like so.
It is like we just spoke, right? It's luxury brands have the aspiration value attached to them. Then everybody is waiting to buy that brand. And like you said, it's usually the first recruiter into the category is by the affordable brand. Now, when a BMW makes a car, let's say they make a car for 15 lakhs, and I'm looking to buy a car for 12 lakhs in the affordable segment, it's only a 3 lakh rupee stretch. I'd want to do it, even if it is not functionally great. The badge value of owning a BMW is still there. Look at what Harley Davidson did. They have best bikes. The actual bikes in India were starting about 14, 15 lakhs above. But they launched a 7 lakh version, 6 lakh version, which was a very average bike. But the badge gave it all its value. And people would buy a 7 lakh rupee bike just for riding a Harley. It was nothing like a Harley that you would drive, or rather you would imagine riding. But the badge value took all the price. So it is easier for them to come down. Now, same thing. If it was just Maruti Suzuki and they were to give me a car which could ideally cost 25 lakhs under a BMW, but they were giving it to me for 18, 19 lakhs, I still wouldn't want to buy it because I don't see it as a luxury buy under the Maruti Suzuki name. So the aspirational value that customers have, the inert ambition, aspiration, drives the luxury brand forward.
Easy acceptance. Yeah. But yeah, I was thinking through when you were talking about this, I also think that a value brand, and a popular one at that, has the sort of mass trust and appeal to also attempt selling to peripheral consumers by getting its definitions right. Yeah. So, for example, say Lifebuoy. Now, Lifebuoy soap, there is a certain imagery associated with it. Now, for a Lifebuoy soap, the luxury sale is Lifebuoy hand wash. Now, they are not aiming to give you something really fancy. Hand wash is luxury for that category. It is premium for that category. The rate per ton of hand wash will be significantly higher than the red cake, right? So, red brick. So, therefore, they can leverage the mass trust that Lifebuoy has to get some of the customers to buy into Lifebuoy hand wash.
That's a beautiful example because, in my opinion, it would be a stretch for Lifebuoy to succeed as a body wash.
Yeah, correct. So, body wash is the next level. And, they would have to really work very hard to make their way to that. Right. But because they have a hand wash brand, selling a slightly more premium hand wash might come more easier.
Absolutely. Because a lot of places use Lifebuoy as the hand wash soap anyway. And they just have to upgrade to the Lifebuoy hand wash pump liquid. That's a perfect example. It's easier for Lifebuoy to get into the periphery around its immediate play area, but a lot difficult to expand beyond that area.
Interesting. So you're saying this seems to be a good viable way of expanding if one has to expand. Now, one of the issues that I assume a lot of the startup founders will have, because they have to have an eye on costs, to say that you are now, previously you were saying, Sharan, don't proliferate. Now not only you are asking them to make SKUs, you are asking them to make brands. Right now, Lifebuoy hand wash is not an SKU of Lifebuoy soap. It's a brand in itself, right? You would have to establish it, etc., etc. So
Exactly.
this seems like a double whammy. Now you're asking them to put up a brand, so therefore the costs are going to go significantly up. Now
See,
I'm confused.
so see, it is a lot of people say this. Even the
Hmm.
large companies say, I don't want to do two brands and spend twice the amount of money. But that is never really the case, right? Because it's not about spending two equal amounts. It's not about building two brands at the same time and having to spend on both at the same time. It's not how it works. Because there are a lot of efficiencies at the back end. Yes, you might need to advertise two brands separately, but you don't have to advertise every brand all the time. And there are brands that are built from ground up without advertisement also. So I interviewed the founder of Yoga Bar, Suhasini Sampath, on my Tamil podcast. And she has sold her company to ITC for roughly 500 crores. She has never advertised. Never. Which is very surprising because a lot of us equate advertising to brand building. She's built a brand enough to be sold for 500 crores, but has never advertised. Food for thought, because she's done the basics right. And she's a CA, she's been money focused, she's been very sure about where she wants to spend her money and continue to build a brand.
Nice.
So it is not about spending money. Yes, there will be some investments you'll have to make. You'll have to get a separate design, separate packaging. You might want to do that. But your distribution, your front end is so much more aligned, because if you're going to the same store, same category, that is when you're actually enhancing the basket for the distributor.
I think brilliant point. I think this is where your point about just expanding on the periphery starts hitting home.
Exactly.
If you're not really searching for a new consumer, new channel, etc., then you're actually leveraging what you've done before. They are complementary spending, and you're actually not doubling the spend. It is actually helping the mother brand or the company, and hence all the more reason why you must look at extending your positioning rather than creating a completely new one.
Yeah, ideally, because it works for Lifebuoy also, right? I don't remember, I mean, in the recent years, I've not seen a Lifebuoy soap ad, but I've seen Lifebuoy hand wash ad, which still keeps Lifebuoy at top of mind anyway.
Correct. The last one I remember is wo Tera sabun slow hai kya?
Hand wash.
Hand wash. So I think this gives good clarity. So when you have something like this, you are building a portfolio of brands. One brand automatically will possibly take the lead, and then you will invest into other ones also, but they'll feed back to the mother one, at least at the initial stages.
Absolutely.
Okay. So tell me, Sharan, when you're trying to create a new brand, apart from really looking at consumers of your mother brand whom you are now trying to sell some other product to, apart from doing that and doing a little bit of positioning with them, what are the other one or two things that the brands need to be careful about when they're wanting to expand their portfolio?
You already touched upon this, which is when you describe the Nexa showroom, spoke about the experience, the language you use, the way people behave. I know a local showroom where the same dealer, when they upgrade to Nexa, they had to let go of a lot of their staff, or rather move them to another showroom and have completely new staff because of the way they wanted to engage with customers who were coming in for Nexa. This actually, it is easier to come up with these ideas, but on the execution front, to keep at it, because success is not going to happen every day. Even in digital marketing, we have a funnel, right? 1 out of 100, we're saying we're great. 1% is fantastic. So for the rest 99% of the time, to maintain the discipline to deliver the same experience to everybody who walks into your showroom is the hard part. And the more you keep doing it, the more your habits change, consumers' perception also changes. And that is creating equity, right? And this is without ads. This is about giving the experience to the consumer after you made the promise in communication.
Actually, good point. We have reiterated this point earlier purely from a branding point of view. But even in this case, you're right that it is not just about launching a product, giving it a name and doing some marketing around it. A big part of marketing is also about execution that you do on the ground, and it must be consistent with the promises that you are making to the consumer. Excellent.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net.